I'm Matthew Kurbis, the subscription attorney, and this is Law Subscribed, your dedicated source for all things subscriptions and the law. Thank you to my sponsors. See links to them in the show notes. Everything discussed is only for educational and entertainment purposes. Enjoy the show. I'm thrilled to have with me today Ray Allen, founder of ContractsCounsel, a platform that I was on even before going solo, starting my own practice. Ray, welcome to Law Subscribed.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I mentioned ContractsCounsel here and there, and it's been in a presentation or two, but I think most of my audience might actually not be super familiar with ContractsCounsel, even though it's been around even longer than I've been a solo practice attorney. So Ray, tell my listeners a little bit about yourself and tell us about ContractsCounsel.
Yeah, sure. So first and foremost, I'm not a lawyer, so I think that I apologize to your audience if I say anything controversial or anything incorrect, but I probably look at things differently, so maybe it'll be interesting. But my background, I was in sales for 11, 12 years for a large services company. The core business was a translation company, and the category I was in was legal. So I used to sell services to big law, and that's kind of the world that I lived in. And I left that job. I fell in love with online marketplaces. I wanted to build an online marketplace. I knew the legal category. So we landed on the idea of starting a marketplace for lawyers to find new clients. And we wanted to make the marketplace powerful in the sense that we deliver consumers, small businesses, startups, people using the marketplace, flat fee proposals for work. And we thought about what lawyers do that we may be able to achieve that objective. And we landed on, basic transactional work. So drafting contracts, reviewing contracts. So, and I guess taking a step back, ContractsCounsel, it's a services marketplace. There's obviously two sides to it. So for the lawyers that are in our network, they use it as a customer acquisition channel. And like I mentioned, we work mostly with consumers, small businesses, startups. We do some engagements with the mid-sized businesses as well. But on the customer side, we help them request proposals to lawyers. Then many people don't know what lawyers know and don't even realize what they need. And if they do have an idea what they need, they're not going to know what to tell a lawyer to be able to get pricing from them. So the platform helps them with that. They create the competitive bidding environment. So, someone may come and hope to get a staff agreement drafted. They can receive 3 to 5 proposals from lawyers on our network that do that they can compare. And then there's tools built in for communication, hiring, project management, and things like that. And one of the interesting things we learned is the type of work we see is very widespread. And I think it's because a lot of things in the legal industry point back to a legal document. So, we do a lot of prenup. We do a lot of tech-related agreements. There's tons of the privacy policies. We do a lot of real estate work, commercial leases, purchase and sale agreements, quick claim deeds, and, a whole lot in between. I think that we have 600 categories that users can pick from. So it's been an interesting ride so far. We've been going for about 4 or 5 years, and we've grown nicely. We've got about 1,000 lawyers in our network right now. Not all of those lawyers are active on a monthly basis. I think some people, and I think you may have fallen in this category, you use the platform to supplement, a current book of clients to pick up extra work. There are some lawyers that use it as their primary client acquisition channel and do a lot of projects with people. And, I say that because some lawyers will be really active in certain quarters and certain months, and then they'll go away because they get busy on their project work with their phone client base, and they come in and out. So people use it in a lot of different ways. I think our network is mostly solos, even though we do have some in-house lawyers that have side practices that use the platform. So anyway, that's a little bit about us and a little bit about me.
Yeah, and I was using the platform really when before I got started. I can't remember how you found me, but probably LinkedIn or something. And then you reached out
Yeah.
to my old firm email and we talked about it. And I thought it was really interesting. And I don't even know if I think I started to sign up. And then, I think I did sign up using the old firm. I don't know if I ended up getting any clients at that time, but it was great when I was launching my practice to already be on the platform and I was getting some business there. And I remember if I got hired for any sort of contract work, a prenup, lease negotiation or something, the other party to that contract also found a lawyer on ContractsCounsel. And now here I am interacting with another lawyer on my client's behalf who the other party found on ContractsCounsel. Now, sometimes, you're just trying to get a deal done and it's not adversarial, right? Like with the prenups, right? And what I found in doing that is like me, the lawyers using ContractsCounsel were already doing things differently, like virtual law firms, fixed fee based, have ditched the billable hour. We're trying to ditch it. So I don't know if it's the way you've been I'm curious to know, this is a question. Are you targeting those lawyers to join the platform, or are those the ones finding your platform? Or is it a little bit of both?
Yeah, good question. I think one thing we do know is that lawyers are looking for solutions like this. So a lot of our signups come in through organic. So we caught that. We do some proactive outreach, but we're to the point where we don't really have to do that anymore. So, I think our platform caters to, it certainly caters to flat fee engagement. The platform has a recommendation engine built in based on the category of what somebody selects. To say, we suggest that you get proposals that are fixed fees for this, or we suggest that you get proposals that are hourly rates for this. But I think it does pushed a lot of consumers into getting flat fee quotes. And, one of the reasons we want to do that is we want to make comparison meaningful. So hourly rates are a good way to compare. However, you may get a lawyer that's been practicing for 25 years. It may take them a couple hours to do something for someone and their billable rate is high. You may get a younger lawyer that hasn't been practicing very long. They're going to need to do extra research. They may not have the template that the lawyer that has been practicing for a long time have. Their hourly rate may be half, but it may take them 6 to 8 hours to do the work. So I think us trying to promote flat fees gives consumers a meaningful way of actually comparing proposals for people and understanding the cost. And we recognize that it's difficult for lawyers to provide flat fees for a lot of different engagements. So we give them ways to communicate to people that, here's the price. I'd like to speak to you prior to you hiring me in case we need to change this. But in terms of being able, to compare where my rate stands relative to other people, lawyers do submit fixed fee proposals. So I do think that lawyers that opt into using our service probably have a bit of a bias towards technology, towards the internet, thinking about building their practice in different ways. Since I think that there are a lot of changes going on right now. So I wouldn't say we seek out people that may think about building their practice differently. I think that there's somewhat of a self-selection with who chooses to sign up for a platform and who chooses to look for a solution like ours. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. And something that comes to mind, you're talking about templates, and it made me think about how I've been able to see the roadmap come to fruition, and the product development over the years, right? Because when you started out, it wasn't necessarily easy to communicate before talking to the clients, but now or potential clients, but now it's super easy to communicate with them and have some back and forth, in the chat before they ultimately hire you, clearly conveying the scope of the fixed fee service and having a place to explain that when putting in the bid. And And I think that helps lawyers conceptualize, oh yeah, like if I'm offering a fixed fee, I have to define the scope well.
Yeah,
And the
exactly.
person who's the consumer of the legal services, like that's going to help them understand. Right. And so like the platform itself is like for lawyers who maybe haven't or are thinking about moving from billable to fixed, and these bids come in requesting a fixed fee, it sort of forces them to engage in that exercise of thinking about that. Because the problem with the billable hour is the scope is not defined at all. It's just how long the thing's going to take.
Exactly. Yeah. And it did you bring that up. I mean, I think when building any type of software or solution, you want to start general because you just don't really know what's going to happen. And then as you learn more, you never want to make it too rigid, but you can start to add features that are going to help users. So we started very general, it was like, give your matter or project a title, and here's the big fat box to tell the Lord what you need. And we've worked on that and tried to make that intake more structured, as well as guiding users through the types of questions and things lawyers are going to want to know just to understand what the scope of work is. On the lawyer side, you're right. We do have a field where lawyers can clearly define what is included in their fixed fee, because we quickly learned that was an important thing to do. And, we extract the dispute between users on our platform, and incredibly, it's right below 1%. So I think some of the stuff that we've added does a good job of communicating expectations between both parties. And, when lawyers are getting up and running, we often work with them and coach them on, how to submit proposals, how to make sure they're protecting themselves from mission creep, for example. And we also can see what proposals are successful versus ones that aren't. So lawyers will often reach out to us and say, hey, I put in X number of proposals. I'm not getting that many bites. We can review the language they're using, the call to action that they're using, how they're defining their, services with what's included in their fixed fees. And we can coach them up and say, we know users like it. This makes sense to them. So it's been kind of a slow burn, and we've gone a non-traditional route where we haven't raised, all this money and hired all these people and took this huge gamble on what people want. We've had a bit of a slower, more methodical way of building our product down. I think it's gotten to a pretty good place for the services marketplace. And one of the latest features that we added, which I really like, you may not even know about actually, is that we have enough data now where if a lawyer has done, let's say, 25 commercial lease reviews on the platform, and they're putting a proposal in for a new commercial lease review project, we are able to bubble up and isolate all of the user testimonials for that exact project, as opposed to just showing the hundreds of reviews they may have across all the work they do in the platforms. So we're actually showing users now, if you're looking at Matthew as a potential option, here's Matthew's 25 client testimonials that are for reviewing commercial leases, so they can actually see what the client experience was for the exact same project that they have. And we get a lot of great feedback from clients on that. And it's one of those things that as our data gets better and better, that's only going to improve, and it's going to improve the confidence of users on our platform that the lawyers they're looking at to hire are going to do a good job. And, one interesting thing too is we get great reviews from users. I think our average rating is a 4.9 out of 5 stars across, the thousands of projects that have happened on our platform, which is, again, surprising to us. But I don't know. I think, building product in a way that sets expectations well between a professional services provider and a client is really important, just because things can be subjective and it's a difficult category, especially the legal industry. So we spent a lot of time trying to do that. I think it's somewhat working, and hopefully it continues to work.
Well, I think, and I'm sure this is anecdotal, but my best estimate is the reason why you have such high ratings from users and or lawyers, right, is because it takes the guesswork and the unknowns out of the fees. Because like a huge reason for like lawyers and clients getting in a tiff is because lawyers don't bill in arrears. The lawyers don't bill ahead of time. They bill in arrears. The client doesn't know how much it's going to cost until they get the bill. Lawyers are hunting down clients for fees. And I'm sure even when, well, I don't actually know because I've never taken an hourly thing on your platform. So I'm not even going to guess.
Yeah.
But I've never had any trouble getting paid when I've gotten a client through the platform, and the client knows exactly what they're getting because how you've set up the platform, right? So like you take those pain points out of the process for lawyers and clients, of course you're going to have good reviews.
Yeah, exactly. And it did thing you bring up the hourly job. So we do have hourly engagements on our platform, and this is not supported with hard data, but I can tell you firsthand that the disputes that do happen, again, they're very rare, but the overwhelming majority of them are hourly engagement, and it has to do with billing. Either this is the bill, this is way too many hours than I was expecting. And then we always have to work, but you talk about it up front. And they, say yes. Sometimes one of the things we're actually thinking about building into the platform now is for an hourly project that starts, there is an optional feature for a lawyer to say, I'm estimating 4 to 6 hours of work, and then they send that for approval before they start billing, and that will memorialize that in the platform so that, if there is a dispute down the road, it's defensible if it was approved by the client. So I think there's more we can do there, but to your point, I do think the hourly engagements are the ones where there can be conflict, and it all comes back to billing. And I think, with really anything, expectation setting is the most important thing. So those are the types of tools that we're trying to build to help reduce those disputes, because nobody wants to deal with them.
You spend your company resources however you want, but you're building a better horse and buggy. You know what I'm saying? Like for lawyers who don't want to drive a car or fly a plane. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just better modes of transportation. And so I wouldn't waste, if I were me in your shoes, I wouldn't waste any resources trying to make billable hours better. I would just say, hey, just so you know, like I would do like a little notice, just so you know, like we have almost no disputes between clients and attorneys who use fixed rates for things. I see you're trying to get a billable rate, whether it's lawyer or client. We highly encourage you consider fixed fee. Just try to, instead of building the billable hour stuff, the better horse and buggy, just try to move people towards using a motor vehicle instead.
Yeah, well, it didn't say, I mean, we've got the data. So 75% of we call them postings, but they're basically project opportunities that come in, or, matters that come in where a potential client wants to get proposals. 75% of those are flat fee requests, and 25% are hourly. There's a bit of bias baked in there. Like I said, the platform does make a recommendation based on the type of work it is. But it's clear to us that customers want to get fixed fee pricing based on those numbers. Maybe there's plus or minus 5% of that from the platform, but the overwhelming majority of opportunities that come in are flat fee jobs. So the universality jobs is just not as big as flat fee.
Yeah. And that speaks volumes for the lawyers listening in particular. Like this is an episode, if you've been a longtime listener of Law Subscribed, share it with some billable hour attorney who you know, because like this is what the potential users want. And frankly, this is the latent legal market. This is the massive market opportunity, right? Like relatively recent data shows 77% of legal needs are going unmet by lawyers. Well, if in 2024, $400 billion were spent in the US, by the way, that unserved legal needs are US, it's US data as well. So we're talking about a $1.3 trillion-dollar market opportunity here. And frankly, that's assuming traditional billable hour models, which are capped amount of fees you could earn because you can only bill so many hours in a day at a rate that clients are willing to pay. So when you productize your legal services, when you use fixed pricing, like the market opportunity here is so huge that these are what those types of clients need. They need known cost for legal services. One of the things ContractsCounsel does, and I signed into my account here so I could actually look at it. And this is something that I think like law school doesn't teach you. Law firm incubator programs like the Chicago Bar Foundation's Justice Entrepreneurship Project, they make you do things like this, but not everybody could go through that program, and it's a paid program. You have bid templates, lawyer packages, right? Instant bids, right? You're offering now subscription things, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here as well, because you've got expert legal chat for $50 a month. And you even do the 99 cents thing that I do, $49.99, which I use the $99 pricing. And so, like you are providing a framework for these lawyers to think about their services in a way that maybe they've never had to do before. But if they want to be successful on ContractsCounsel, they got to do these things. And then they spend less time bidding because they've got the template set up and they've been thinking about productizing their legal services. Even if you're not automating the service, you're like first level thinking about productizing my legal service or being more efficient, right? Was that like part of the design process or just a happy accident?
I mean, we're always looking at ways to reduce soft costs for lawyers. There's so many different points you can make here. You brought up instant bid. That I forget how long we've had that feature, but just so your audience understands, lawyers on a platform can actually set up proposals that automatically get submitted. And I know that sounds a bit scary to people because they don't know what, proposals would be going in, but we've actually done it in a way that I think is pretty safe. So, if a client comes and says, I need to get an operating agreement reviewed, we ask things like how many pages is it, and some other structured data we collect. And lawyers on the platform can say, I want to set up an offer to review operating agreement in the state of Florida, and my price for 10 to 15 pages is at, and here's the text, and here's what's included in my fee. It's all set up previously, and you can do that across all our categories. So there are lawyers that have set up 50, 100 instant bids, and they kind of forget about us. And all of a sudden they get an email that says, hey, there's a client that wants to speak to you about a proposal that you put in. So it's a bit like, business development, is automated and it's kind of on autopilot for people. So that was something we did. One of our goals is to reduce the amount of time people are in or using our platform where they're not actually making money. So that was one thing we did. Subscriptions is interesting. To go back to the point I made earlier, we, want to launch things in non-rigid ways. So, there's a function in our platform where a lawyer can create their own proposal without, responding to a client request. It may be for a repeat client, for example, or if they did bid on some work and the way the project was set up, it wasn't right, they can send their own proposal. So we added a subscription field there just to see what would happen. And we've learned different things lawyers are offering on subscription, a subscription basis. So we've got lawyer, everyone kind of knows the outside general counsel approach or packages, but we've got lawyers that, will sell clients 5 hours a month, 10 hours a month, 20 hours a month at reduced hourly rate because they know that income is guaranteed. So we see a lot of those types of packages. We've seen lawyers sell subscriptions to be registered agents for people. We've seen lawyers sell subscriptions to just respond to emails for people, which I find is an interesting one. And one of the things we most recently launched, and it's kind of a beta project for us right now because we want to learn more about it. Is what we're calling expert legal chat. And what it is the consumer will pay a monthly fee to get connected to a lawyer in live chat to ask questions to. So it's not, it's not legal advice and there's no attorney-client relationship set up and it's clear on the platform that that's the case. But it's really, people that don't want to pay for, $350 for a full-blown like hour-long comp. They don't want to use like one of the 100 free legal forums online that, they don't know who's responding to it or if it's even reliable. So they'll come to our product and they will say, I just want to ask questions to a lawyer. They subscribe to the service. We connect them with a lawyer and they start engaging in live chat and the lawyer will answer whatever questions they have. It seems to be working well, and we're allowing users to rate cats, and I think all of the ratings have been 5 stars so far, which is good. But one of the most interesting things about it is that we've actually seen 40% of those cats convert into paid services, and so in a sense, it's becoming a lead gen service for the lawyers that are doing live chat. And, I guess specifically what I mean about that is they may get connected with a user. They've got a question. The lawyer figures out what they need. And, inevitably the user's going to say, well, can you do this for me? Right? Maybe they need to get a certain document drafted or they want to get, a non-compete agreement reviewed or, something like that. That was what their initial question was about. And the lawyer says, yeah, they can do it. They can send an offer in the platform. Since the client's already signed up, they can get hired through the platform and they converted kind of the chat client of theirs to a paid services client. So it's still early days on this, but it's pretty interesting. And I think that there's definitely a market for that. And like other things we're still measuring is how many people are going to just cancel it after they get their question, answered versus people that keep it open because they find some sense of utility in having a lawyer available whenever they want to chat. So we're still measuring those numbers. We suspect there will be a lot of cancellations, but there are people that have been leaving it open as well. So that's an exciting thing that we're working on. We've tried some other stuff with subscription. So there's some big legal subscription companies out there like Legal Field and, other people where you pay a certain fee and you get a certain set amount of services per month. We haven't had as much success on that. And also lawyers haven't had that much success when they've been offering that on a platform to people. The thing that we've seen have the highest success is when they just sell a chunk of hours to you, basically. And they can show value to the client because they may bill out at $350 an hour. But if they bundle 10 hours, maybe it aggregates out to $275 an hour, or something like that. So,
well, Ray, I'm glad you brought that back up because this is my moment for users of ContractsCounsel because we're going to post this in the circle group. We're going to make sure people who actually use it also listen to this episode.
Yeah,
this is for them. And not even for you to say anything to them, right? Because don't say anything about this, but this is me saying it. And this is for educational purposes only, not legal ethics advice. Consult a legal ethics attorney in your jurisdiction. When you sell prepaid hours, you have to refund the hours not used in almost every single jurisdiction. Selling prepaid hours on a subscription is not a subscription model. It is billable hours in a different thing. Right? You have polished that turd of billable hours. It is still billable hours, right? When you design a subscription package for your clients, there are subscriber benefits and they have nothing to do with how long it takes. It might take 1 minute. It might take 100 minutes, 1,000 minutes. It doesn't matter. It matters about what are the benefits that are defined, right? Maybe you get 5 projects on ContractsCounsel for X amount a month. And even at the value, even if you only redeem 1 or 2 of the 5 projects, you're getting the value, right? And so the reason you prepay for the 5 projects is because you're getting a great deal when you use the 5 projects. So, and then the attorney account of the income, and that's not to be said in other industries, prepaid hours couldn't work. But in legal specifically, because of the case law, because of the ethics rules around hourly billing and what you can and can't define as an earned fee, do not sell on subscription prepaid hours to the lawyers, just for educational purposes only.
Yeah. And just to comment on that, though, we don't have insight into whether or not,
Oh yeah, Ray, that's not on,
yeah.
that's not on contracts counsel.
Yeah,
that's on the lawyers.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's interesting you bring this up. So we have taken a very, light-handed approach to the whole platform, because our view is that we are not the regulators. We don't know as much as the lawyers know about what they can and can't do ethically. So we have no rules really baked in. People can use the platform appropriately, and our view is that lawyers using the platform should, know their own rules, and we obviously trust them to do that. So,
Yeah,
but it's a fair point to bring up.
Yeah, and when a lawyer uses ChatGPT to do legal research, which it should never be used for, and it makes up cases, and the lawyer doesn't check those cases, which they shouldn't even be doing anyway. Don't use ChatGPT to do legal research. That's not what it was designed for. It's not connected to a database of cases. And even if it was trained on it, even if it's trained on those cases, it's like if a human read the cases, could they perfectly cite to the part of the game? No. So don't use that ChatGPT to do legal research. But my point is, OpenAI is not liable when a lawyer breaches their legal ethics, right? I don't think contracts counsel, right, exactly, same thing. Let me tell you about the brand new sponsor for Law Subscribed, Paxton. I've been using Paxton as my legal AI tool for over 2 years. I continue to evaluate and demo other legal AI tools in the market and still decide to stick with Paxton because of its reliability, its accuracy, its ease of use, affordability, and they do not lock you into a long-term contract. Now, as a transactional and fractional general counsel attorney, I'm using Paxton for all of my substantive and non-substantive legal work, whether that's legal research, analysis, drafting, or enhancing existing legal work product. In the time it used to take me to draft and analyze legal documents, now, after a little bit of back and forth with Paxton, I have something ready to go in minutes that used to take hours or even days. While I'm no longer a litigator, I could see how valuable Paxton would be when researching a new issue, preparing for a deposition, drafting a motion, or going to trial. So if your firm would benefit from using Paxton as your legal AI tool, then make sure to use the link in the description when signing up to let Paxton know I sent you. That's all about our new sponsor. Now back to the show. Having said that, we've been hiding the ball here a little bit, and we're not going to get into it too deep. But lawyers who might want to join the platform might be thinking, well, okay, how does contracts counsel even make any money? And as a user of it, I'll just say there's very well-defined platform fees, depending on the level of engagement or project that a client engages you for. And you pay based on the bracketed fee. It's a technology fee. And so, do you, for me, when I come in, I already have all fixed fees. I've experimented on contract counsel with increasing my fee a little bit based on the platform fee I'm paying. And then I've also done it where I've just not increased the fee I would charge off of it because the fees are relatively reasonable. They're bracketed, so I know what it's going to be. And that's the CAC, right? That's the customer acquisition cost. And I have found both work for me. But it's typically more successful when I just charge whatever I would have charged had I not, increased my fee based on the platform technology fee that contracts counsel. So you only make money when we make money, but we are paying you a separate fee for that customer, for that client, is the way that I've interpreted it.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a bunch of points on that. So we taking a big step back, I think that client acquisition for lawyer is difficult. It's only going to get harder. Based on the things that we know and have read, which I'm sure many people in your audience have read, people, not big businesses, but let's just say consumers and small businesses, they find lawyers through Google and they find lawyers through word of mouth and referrals. Those are the two main channels. Google, in my view, is extremely difficult for solos, even small firms to compete because of the way the economics work with their bidding model. And inevitably, the big keyword, which, by the way, legal is the most expensive category on Google. The small solos are going to get outbid by the big funds all day long. So, and then secondly, if you want to rank organically, which I know a lot of lawyers put a lot of time into SEO, which we have as well, the budget that some of these big funds have to deliver, SEO content, is much higher, and their domain authority is going to be much higher than a solo's website. So, in my view, it's extremely difficult to acquire clients. And then the other types of lead generation services that you pay for, are, pay $500 a month and we'll loop you in on an email with some lead. You guys don't have the ability to choose what you get looped in onto. And 80% of the time, the lead is something that you're probably not even interested in.
Just quick anecdote, those platforms have tried to get me to sign up for them. We don't need to name drop them, but I know I think the listeners know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So and there's other ways, right? But I find and think that client acquisition for lawyers is hard, and it doesn't seem like a lot of people talk about it. I could be wrong. But one of the reasons we have structured ourselves the way we are is we want the barrier to entry for lawyers to participate in a competitive marketplace to be zero. And, that may not always be the case. But I think if we want to make things more fair and we want to lower risk for solos and small firms to try to find new clients, then, the, upfront fees, create more risk for people. So it's a model, like you said, it's a flat technology fee that we've been using, like it's obviously changed in the future, but our goal is to just get participation, and we want it to be a no-brainer as opposed to, looking at some upfront fee that you got to pay and figuring out, what you're going to get in return for that. So that's our view. We just want to make it a no-brainer for people, and we want to get people into the ecosystem participating. If they get value out of the marketplace, that's great. We hope they do. If they don't, there's no, $2,000 loss, in, spending fees in a quarter to try to acquire clients. And, it took you $2,000 to learn it wasn't going to work. So yeah.
Yeah. And I remember when I was being sold to try to sign up for one of these other platforms that you could say competes with ContractsCounsel, but it's like it only competes in that it's a two-sided marketplace, and then everything else is totally different, where they were like, well, we are the top search result for, blank practice area in Google. And so I searched it. I remember searching it live. This was like, 3 years ago. And I was like, actually, no, ContractsCounsel is the number one SEO result.
Right.
So, like whatever magic you guys are doing,
Yeah.
I know everything's changing with search generative experience and all that stuff, but it's interesting. Look, I get all of my information of vendors I need to hire through Perplexity. So
Perplexity is great.
Yeah, I'm just using Perplexity Pro, and I've been using Perplexity Deep Research with mixed results. I actually think I like Pro better than Deep Research for certain things, and then it has like an auto feature where it will pick the best thing that it thinks is right for that. But I've just been using Pro for everything, dabbling with Deep Research. Yeah. Another thing I wanted to point out is this, even though you're offering it as a subscription and you expect there to be churn with the $50 a month for expert legal chat, there might be something to that price point for even just a one-off consultation. So other friend of the show, another platform, two-sided marketplace platform that I'm an attorney on, an approved attorney on, Hello Prenup. Now they're just doing prenups. Like, so imagine ContractsCounsel, but like it's just prenups, right? And there might be something to that, right? Hello Divorce, like there's ideas there. What they offer, and they've changed their product a lot over the years too, is it's like a 20-30 minute call. I think it's just like 20 minutes, $49 with an attorney, but it is legal advice about what they should or shouldn't do for the prenup. But I had to pre-agree to engagement terms, as did the the user of Hello Prenup, that this was like a one-time engagement for 20 minutes. As soon as the phone call is over, attorney-client relationship terminates. And it's my opportunity to actually give valuable legal advice in 20 minutes for $49. They just pass that fee right along to me, because they make money when the customer buys the prenup. So it's not an exact one-to-one, because they're selling an automated template, right? And so they pass along that $49 to me, but it's really it's an opportunity. I'm making money to try to convert them to hire me for the full prenup representation, which is a pre-agreed to fixed fee that I will have to agree to, if I'm representing them for the prenup, right? So like, there's something about that $49, $50 price point to just like talk to a lawyer for 20 minutes and just see if and then it's my opportunity to convert them so I could sell a project, right? In this instance, it's prenups, but on ContractsCounsel, it could be a prenup. It could be anything.
Yeah.
And so I think there might be something there. And whether it's a subscription or to just like a one-off payment for a one-off call, and what Hello Prenup does, I'm not sure how you want to do this, Ray, is they integrate it with Calendly. And so I have to, and I'm already using Calendly, so it's easy for me.
You just get calls booked on your calendar, basically.
And then I make $50 whenever $49 whenever I get that thing. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it did the thing. I mean, there's certainly a gap between paying $0 and paying full hour consultation. And I think that is the gap. I think the price point is definitely for debate. We don't have enough data to know, where to necessarily price it. And we've been playing around with that a little bit. So, and the interesting thing, well, you're talking about calls, we're doing that. The interesting thing about that is you can actually do more than one of them. So there's a bunch of different ways to look at it. But I think in terms of helping consumers and helping people, I think those types of products are great because, somebody that has no idea about a situation or a problem they've got, all they want to do is to connect with a lawyer. They go on Google, they go to law firm website, half of the law firms say that there's a $300 intake consultation fee. Maybe it's refundable if they represent them, maybe it's not. A lot of lawyers will also not respond to inquiries if they don't think the client is going to end up being a good client, which is understandable, because obviously you guys get a lot of inbound and are busy. You maybe head down and some client work when inquiries come in. So it's just challenging. And I think if you can aggregate enough demand, then you make clients that aren't seen traditionally as good clients, you make them good clients, because it's not just about one, it's about all of them together. So I definitely think that there is something in this space. Again, it's something we've just started, but I do think it's solving a problem for people. And hopefully, people can go to bed easier at night because they did connect with a lawyer. They did get some guidance on some issue that they might be dealing with, and hopefully they've helped them. So it's fair. It could be a subscription, it could be a one-time fee, but I think bridging the gap between the full hour consultation and no consultation at all, I think is definitely a problem, and it's what we're trying to solve for.
So I have maybe two more points and then a fun final question, but we're at time, so I just want to see if you have another 5 or 6 minutes.
Oh yeah, totally.
Okay. So from my perspective, like, more subscription offerings in the legal industry just increases awareness that that's even an option to subscribe to an attorney, whether that's legal advice, legal information, whatever. So like, because my $20 a month subscription for my clients is that, like, they message me in the client portal, but they're like actually getting advice, right? Now, what I see and what I would love to have, and I haven't seen a solution that's built for lawyers like this. I've seen it built for content creators, but there's a question of confidentiality, so I'm not doing it yet, is like a subscription attorney bot for my law firm. Because you're not giving legal advice anyway, Ray. And like, the way that I see it is, I like getting hands-on, even though I'm not technical. I'm tech savvy and I like building and no code integrations and other things. Most lawyers are not like that. They just need a platform like ContractsCounsel that they could go to, and like, you have it set up for them. And like they could just do it, like, based on their past interactions, maybe based on data that they input.
Yeah.
You help them make like that law firm or that attorney named bot. Now you don't. I think you don't want to pretend it's a real person, and you definitely don't want to pretend it's you, the lawyer. You want to say, hey, look, I'm an AI chatbot that's been trained on this lawyer or this law firm's data. I can't give you legal advice, but I could help point you in the right direction. And then if you need to, we could get you in touch with the attorney, right?
Yeah.
And so like, then they're always available, and if I don't know how you could do it on the back end for your thing, but if you could segment it so like each lawyer on the platform sort of has their own different way and maybe some different settings, more friendly, more formal, more whatever, I think there's an opportunity there.
I think it's, I think I think that's probably coming, right? And it's not necessarily to that, there's products out there now that will be able to take, your preferred red line or things that the kind of views you have on different funds and be able to, mark up a document like you would. I think all of this stuff is coming and some of it is already here. I think you're the ethics, hosting expert, and I think it gets a bit complicated when it comes to privileged information and what, can that get indexed in a bot? Probably not. Like, how do you segment that out from other things? Like, obviously, during big discovery cases, you do privilege reviews and things like that. But like, I don't know. It's an interesting. It's just the thing. I mean, I think having a bot that is going to communicate with users like you would do a lot for lawyers, and it would also do a lot for potential customers and clients. So it's a great idea. I think that there's a lot to be figured out. Do I think that will happen? Yes, I do. And like, will it add value to both parties? Definitely. But I think figuring out how to do it the right way is going to be something that is going to be challenging, but it will get solved.
And the point is even legal information from a lawyer-trained AI bot is valuable and worth a monthly subscription, right?
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
like even as an entry-level point to get folks like in the door for more substantive work when they don't want to do it yourself approach anymore, right?
Yeah.
It's like these legal AI chatbots that don't give legal advice will be like an on rails do it yourself approach. But sometimes that's just not going to be enough. Sure, could I, clean my own gutters? Sure, but there's risks associated with that. With the legal stuff, you don't know what the risks are,
Yeah.
but the
Right.
lawyers do.
Yeah.
So like there's a certain level of do it yourself and get professional help in whatever it is. And I think that the AI chatbots that are Gen AI powered, that don't give legal advice, but are trained on how the lawyers interact and their knowledge, I think is the future. And I look forward to seeing how you guys are, implement something like that.
Yeah. And I think, it brings up probably a whole different podcast, which I'm not qualified to talk about mostly, but the idea of consumers engaging directly with AI to do things that might qualify as legal services is an interesting thing that I'm sure a lot of people are talking about. And, within the legal startup ecosystem, there's a lot of AI products being built for lawyers because of that issue. I think people, there have been some companies that have tried to build for the consumer. There are companies that are building for the consumer. I don't know how tested it is, and I think it's really complicated. It's a complicated thing, but with all of that said, it is very reasonable to believe that consumers are currently using things like ChatGPT or Claude or these other AI products to get legal advice. Legal advice, however you want to define that, but to solve their legal problems. And one thing we see in our marketplace is request for pricing to review a contract that they drafted with ChatGPT, right? So, which is an interesting thing to think about. One, it shows consumers are using these products. Two, it shows that they still want a human in the loop. And I think that is probably going to be the way the legal industry stays for a long time. So when it comes to, if I were to start a law practice tomorrow, I think a competitive advantage for some lawyers is going to be to figure out how to use all these things. And, we talked about fixed fees. They're great if you can couple them with technology, because in theory, you should be able to make your margin expand eventually. So, but anyway, like, this is a whole different topic. I don't think anyone knows what's going to happen, but it's definitely it's an interesting thing to think about. And, like I mentioned, we're seeing more of this type of stuff come into the marketplace. So it's reasonable to believe that consumers are using this technology. And I think, ultimately, people that are going to lean into this as lawyers will probably benefit, because it's not going away. And I think the adoption from the consumer side is only going to increase. And what it means to lean into, I don't think anybody knows at this point. But, I would recommend, like, starting to play around with this stuff. And, I've talked with a lot of lawyers on our product, as we have built something that is kind of a MVP to help lawyers do their jobs more efficiently. And some of the stuff I post with people is pretty amazing. Like, there's lawyers that use ChatGPT to, do a first draft, or they take a clause and, they say they want to update this clause. Like, people are using it for all different ways. I know there are some other products that are built by some legal tech companies that people are using. The lawyers in our network are using it and trying to learn it. And I think that is a smart thing to be doing right now, because it's not going to go away, and consumers are going to increasingly use it themselves and expect that lawyers are using it. And, one of the interesting things to think about, there's obviously doomsday people with AI and, lawyers are, going to get crushed. But, like, my view is maybe a bit contrarian. Like, I think it could make the total spend on legal, like, in the aggregate, increase, because it may unlock an unbelievable amount of demand if prices can come down across the industry. So I don't know, and we were talking earlier before we started filming, the need to have tons of associates at a firm may change because of some of the technology. So when it comes to margin, that margin profile might change, because you don't have all of the, labor overhead, office space overhead. So I think it's a much bigger discussion, but I think you could make a sound argument that, legal spend might increase. And, it's somewhat validated by the Uber and taxi example. Like, more people spend money on taxis now than before, because everyone's gotten accustomed to taking Ubers, basically. So it would be determined how it ends up. I don't think that it's a doomsday thing at all. I actually think it could be the opposite.
Yeah, Ray, and I'm glad you, a non-lawyer, identified the Uber example, because it's one I bring up all the time. And people like lawyers have a hard time wrapping their minds around it, because it's like, okay, well, did they see, oh, well, this is the market, like, this pie is the market of legal services, or people paying for legal services. And I go, that was like the people paying for cabbies. Like, it was like a limited market, but the latent market, the demand for rideshare, was way bigger than the cabbies could fill, but they only saw the market available for cabbies. Well, I think it's the same exact thing, right? There's this massive market opportunity. Lawyers need to go for it. ContractsCounsel is one of the ways that they do that. If the lawyers watching, listening to this are interested, it's contracts, plural, contracts.counsel.com. You scroll to the bottom under company, there's a For Lawyers button, and you click on that for information about if you want to join the platform. You could figure it out that way. Any other sort of calls to action or places to go or follow or link in it or whatever?
I think we're looking for real estate lawyers right now. So, like, we can leave it at that. Secondly, another product we didn't talk about that we recently came out with that is relevant. We built a marketplace for lawyers to sell templates, which I know sounds a bit elementary, but I'm excited about it for multiple reasons. And we're people are buying templates from lawyers on our platform right now. And why I'm excited about it is, one, lawyers have a lot of value between their ears and on their hard drives of their computers that are owning for them at all times. And building I like to say a digital asset marketplace because it could become more than just templates, but being able to create listings to sell to consumers and earn money while there's no incremental effort on your end to deliver the service is a way to create passive income for your practice. So it's another experiment we're doing, but we have consumers buying templates from people, and at the end of the month, lawyers get to cut them up for the purchases. And then the second reason I'm excited about it is that I may be wrong about this, but we may be the only solution online now where you can download a legal template and then actually have access to the lawyer who drafted it, which I think from a consumer experience is really good because many people find a template online and they download it and they read it and they're like, whoa, I don't understand what a lot of this is. I don't know how to fill this out. This clause doesn't say exactly what I think it needs to say. And then they're kind of left with no options. So what we're doing is, Matthew could upload templates to sell. Somebody buys his template. We've got a way for them to pack on 30 minutes, an hour of his time if they have questions about it. But then they can also send messages to him in the platform and say, hey, I bought your template. Can I hire you to help me optimize it to my situation? Which I think is a great user experience to solve the big problem that's out there. So that is one thing that we're excited about. We just need more listings. So if you want to be, I hate to use the cliche, but like a creator, you could help us try to build something in the legal creator industry because I think there's a big opportunity for it. And especially with some of the AI tools now where you might be able to generate great templates, in 10 minutes, for example, it might be a good way to create passive income for your practice. So that's something I'm excited about. And I think just thirdly, like we talked before the show, like, I have no idea where any things are going. Like our whole mission is to try and help lawyers make more money and, find clients and find creative ways to monetize their practice. So we're going to continue doing that. If you join our network, there are no obligations to do anything. So just getting in the loop would be great. And I, got good relationships with a lot of lawyers in our network. Like I love talking to people about this stuff. So if interested, sign up. It'd be great to meet you and chat with you. And hopefully our product and what we're doing can bring value to your practice.
Yeah. And look, there are some lawyers who heard that, Ray, and thought it was a great idea. And there were others who were like, well, what if I want to be like Jim Hart, who's been a guest on the podcast? He has his own contract marketplace that he's created that he could sell to even non-clients because it's a product, right? It's a separate business entity and all that. And then if they want to hire his firm, they can hire his firm too. But then you have to manage and do all that stuff, is my point to those people. So like ask yourself, how long have you been planning to do that? And you haven't done it. Well, Ray's built a platform that just lets you do it. And that's going to have a cost associated with it, right? So it's just one of those things where I think once folks get over that hurdle of, but I could do it myself and I could keep more money in my pocket. Well, yeah, I could get paper checks and cash from people, but I'm going to always use Stripe because I'll happily give up $3 to make $97 immediately on an automated recurring basis every single time. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think also the, distribution is difficult, right? So if you have a site and you want to sell 50 different templates, like that's great. And hopefully it's successful. I think, if you look at these companies like Etsy and these other marketplaces that allow people to sell things to people, they've got millions, if not billions of pages, and they can bring users in and, once they start interacting with the site, they can discover you a lot easier. So I think like it's just on the distribution piece. You basically, it's like, what would you pay to get help with distribution? So
That's a great analogy. The Etsy thing. That's like that is so good because the template store on Contracts Council is like Etsy, but for legal products that lawyers are selling to not even clients, just anybody, because they're not a client, they're just buying a legal product.
I mean, we've actually had lawyers in our network buy templates from other lawyers in our network, which is interesting. Yeah. So I think there's something there. And like, I think eventually, we want to, we could do videos, training courses, like anything, maybe it's a dorky way of looking at it, but like anything where there's zero incremental cost to the lawyer for another purchase is what we're interested in, because then you can get it set up. There's no pull from you to complete a transaction. And then at the end of the month, you get a check basically from us for the upfront investment you made in drafting that template and spending the time to create the listing.
Yeah. Well, we could probably keep talking about this forever, and I'll have to have you back on the podcast, but I'll give you the last question that I ask all my guests to get listeners to stick around to see how they answer. And that is, Ray, is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
It's just because you're from Chicago.
It's just a fun question.
That is I would say no, it's a hot dog.
Why?
I think that sandwiches don't have connected pieces of bread traditionally, and I think of a sandwich as being square, which I don't know if that's a good answer, but that would be my answer.
No, there's no right answer. Just always interested to see what people think. Well, stick around for 30 seconds after we click stop recording so it could upload to the cloud, but we'll just sign off. One last time, Ray Allen, thanks again for coming on Law Subscribed.
Oh, no, thanks for having me.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Make someone's day by sharing this episode with them. The best way to get in touch is to follow and message me on LinkedIn. To get extra content, subscribe to the newsletter at www.lawsubscribe.com, where you can also become a paid subscriber to get episodes and content early. Until next time, this is Matthew Kurbis with Law Subscribed.